Progress.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 17th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. We'll start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner Ken Rovinsky.
Present.
Commissioner Emma Fullwilder.
Present.
And Commissioner Kelsey Lutzow.
Present.
Moving on to approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda for the Monday, June 17th, 2024 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Daniels, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Moving on to approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes from the June 3rd, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Fullwilder. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to regular business, item number 1, election of officers.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So every June, Plan Commission elects their officers. There's 3 seats they elect. The chairperson, which you do first, the vice chairperson, which you do second, and then the secretary, which you do last, and that is typically the director of community and economic development as a secretary, unless you guys want to start taking minutes inside. So you would start with, nominating or a motion to nominate somebody for the chairperson.
Nominate Lisa Hanson, Chair.
You have to get a second. Second.
Yes.
And then what happened?
I
I
think we
moved
wait
to
to
close.
see if anybody else.
If there's any other,
Yeah.
Or I move to close nominations.
That's
That's right.
Second, yeah. sure.
do I have to note all those?
No.
Okay.
And you can just vote on it.
Oh, okay, so the motion is to vote in Lisa Hanson as chair. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We can do one day, one of these.
Right, I'm like, all right. Okay, and then we move on to vice chair then? And I would like to nominate, or I can't, can I nominate? I can't, can I? Can I? I can do that, I can't make motions, but I'd like to
You might as well
nominate.
take advantage of it.
Right, I get to do one thing. I'd like to vote, nominate Vice Chair Miller as Vice Chair. Again.
Second.
Second
Thanks,
Vice
Ken.
Chair. Do we have any more nominations?
I move to close nominations.
Second that? All right, then we were voting to put Jacob Miller in as Vice Chair of the Planning Commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then we just nominate the city as the secretary?
We do that, yeah, the community and economic development director.
Okay, so
Do we need to?
we need to nominate that as well.
Okay.
Make a motion to nominate Cheryl Linear Wade as secretary.
Well, you want to do it as the development director.
Oh, not
In case
tied
the
to a
person
certain
changes.
person.
Oh,
Correct.
okay. The development director of community and economic development.
Second.
All right, I'd like to close nominations.
Second.
All right, then, all those in favor to vote the Director of Community and Economic Development as the Secretary of the Planning Commission?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to we are already in regular business, we're moving on to item number 2. Consideration with possible action on a request to amend the city's official map by removing future Lafayette Drive extension to future Eric Street extension, replaced with a cul-de-sac at the end of Lafayette Drive, submitted by Brad Reimer, Verbiker applicant, on behalf of Thomas and Mary Safner, property owners.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a point of housekeeping with this one, this is for action right away, considering action. There isn't a public hearing that's held here at Planning Commission, but there is one that would be held at the first reading at City Council on the 25th. So I just want to put that out there. Obviously, you can open it up for comment, all of that good stuff. But so this request involves the parcels that are highlighted in red. The future land use is pretty much, as you can see, all yellow, which is our low-density residential district. And then the zoning, this particular property is actually zoned rural residential. And then the property to the south is also zoned rural residential, as well as properties to the west. But to the north and to the east, everything is zoned R1 low-density residential. The request is to vacate this portion that's shown in green, which is a Lafayette Drive extension. So you can see Lafayette is an east-west road that's supposed to continue and connect up to another future road. The subject area is wooded, undeveloped. It's south of Hazelwood Lane and north of future Parkwood Drive extension. It is east of Crestwood Springs Drive over here, and then west of Packerland Drive. The petitioners own the subject parcels that were shown in red previously, and it's these two parcels here. They're proposing to divide the land and create home sites where Lafayette Drive is officially planned to connect to future Eric Street extension. Our official map states that you cannot put structures in areas that are officially mapped. So in order for them to build their homes, they would need to get this removed from the official map. They do, when it comes to this request, in speaking with the applicant, there were some justifications that were given, and they're included in my report here. Currently, there are these two parcels on Hazelwood Lane that run deeper than the other parcels. And so what that ends up doing is it kind of shortens that length, the depth of future parcels. And they find that as a good justification that it would result in smaller lots that really aren't consistent with the size of the lots in the neighborhood, and they would just be less desirable to buyers. The expenses associated with the cost of extending Lafayette Drive to Eric Street are expensive, which would result in expensive lots. The development of this area also involves another large property owner to the south, which is the Kubiak property, and that they may not be interested in developing their property for new home sites. And the fourth one, the proposed lot layout will still add new housing stock to the city, and the lots would be more in keeping with what is seen out in this neighborhood. But staff, however, we don't support this request. The Smart Growth Plan, in the 2020 Smart Growth Transportation Plan, part of our comprehensive plan, emphasizes the importance of a grid street pattern. This also shows their proposed lot layout. So these are the lots that would be the issue, more so this one, but for the need for Lafayette Drive to no longer connect to Eric. They would also reorganize, reconfigure. There's 3 really small lots that are on Crestwood Springs Drive, and they would combine those to create some larger lots, 2 larger lots. So instead of 3 small lots, they would go to 2 larger size lots that are in keeping more with the layout of the other lots in that area. So the reason why the comprehensive plan doesn't support cul-de-sacs is it really creates congestion with roads, and it really puts extra burden on roads that aren't part of that cul-de-sac system. So in this figure here, 19-8 to the left is our typical grid pattern, and when you're in a grid pattern, you have a lot more options of exiting, entering, getting to your destination. But when we look at more cul-de-sacs, and if you look at these maps here with our official map, I mean, you notice that it's pretty cul-de-sac heavy. There is quite a few, and to eliminate the one connection, well, I shouldn't say the one connection, because Eric Street is proposed to connect down to Parkwood Drive, but this would limit that connectivity. And the same with figure 19-9, the northern pieces, or the northern portion of the graph, shows how a conventional street pattern looks, where everybody has to go in and out the same way, and there is no options for how you get in and out, and it ends up turning the arterial or the collector into a much more busier road than it necessarily needs to be, because it's adding so much extra local traffic to the road. So by doing grid pattern streets, they offer overall greater road capacity, increased route choices for local trips, more direct routes for biking and walking compared to conventional street patterns. As with the conventional, everybody has to go on that main busy road that, you can't really bike on because you've got all these cars you gotta battle with too. Currently, the position, or what would end up happening, is that it would get replaced with a cul-de-sac. And then in our smart growth plan, it states that it has been argued that cul-de-sacs are desirable and that houses at the end of cul-de-sacs sell at premium prices because people do not want traffic in front of their house. This shouldn't be a surprise. If the options are between a house on a street with traffic and a house on a street with no traffic, most would choose the house with no traffic. However, neighborhoods with grid pattern streets can and do provide low-volume roads, which, when designed properly, provide desirable housing options with minimal traffic impacts. These grid pattern neighborhoods also offer environments that provide safer, more comfortable, and attractive places to walk and bike. One of the other reasons is for our recommendation is that our 2020 Green Bay housing market study stresses the need for more housing. While there are 2 homes proposed, there is potential to have homes on both the north and the south sides of future Lafayette Street. And we have seen some creativity and options when it comes to lot sizes, and I believe we're even looking at changing our zoning requirements to not require such a large, and by large I mean 7,500 square foot lot size anymore. And that's pretty small. As part of the official map amendment process, we are required to reach out to other city departments to see if there would be any impacts to their department functions. We did hear back from the water utility, the Parks Department, and Public Works. They have no comments, didn't see any issues. The fire department didn't really have any concerns or issues with this proposed cul-de-sac. They actually commented that the other cul-de-sacs that are on the official map are all substandard and wouldn't comply with our codes. So that was kind of interesting. Alderperson Hinkfist and the affected property owners with 200 feet have been notified. We did receive some questions from some of the neighboring property owners, just trying to understand the request, but they didn't specifically state whether they support or object to the request. We did receive an email from Dave Kubiak, who's that property owner to the south, and he stated that he has no objection to the request. And our recommendation is the denial of the request. This also shows, I just kind of wanted to show a brief overview of kind of the larger neighborhood and that you then limit a lot of interaction and the ability to maybe get to Hazelwood Lane to, from different areas and all of the different options that you could have if you had more of a connected street pattern out there, but as a recommendation.
Thank you. So that map that you had with all the cul-de-sacs, that is what is on the comprehensive plan, except for Lafayette should be going all the way through? Is that what you're?
Correct. So all of the areas in red
That's all.
are already part of the official map, so nobody can build in there. And actually, this green area is a no-build area, but that's what they're showing they want to eliminate, that section. And then just they would cul-de-sac it. But I guess we're coming from this one from a planning perspective, and we know that the property owner is gonna, be creating some very nice lots out there, and that the lots are in keeping with the neighborhood. But as planners, in our professional opinion, and things that we even hear when it comes to the comprehensive plan that we're working on right now, a lot of it stresses connectivity. We really want to be able to get to places easier. While it doesn't really seem like too big of a deal, and really it's probably not, it's just kind of, one less connection that we could possibly have when we have an opportunity to maybe have it still, and then, what would happen in the future, maybe other areas of the city too. Precedent wise.
I like to say it's an awful term, but death by 1,000 cuts. A little change, one little change, one little change, one little change. Eventually, you cut up the map. But
Question, and just to be redundant, the only thing we're approving is taking the green off the existing street map, right?
Correct.
So the rest of the red is already a street map,
Officially mapped, yep. Mhm.
officially mapped, so we're just taking the green off
Yep. So
with this motion, if we approve it.
correct.
Okay.
I'm going to say, I'm inclined to support the denial. I agree with the planning standpoint here. Just taking a look at even the way you can subdivide that, you actually get fewer lots, it seems like, just by doing a quick count. You get fewer lots, so you're going to have fewer houses. That, and then with, touching on the connections, thinking of like bikeability through this neighborhood, you're just losing those connections. So I would support a denial of this.
I would support approval of this map simply because the plan was to have all those circles in there, and they're just providing one more. I know we're cutting off access horizontally across, but to me, that's 1/5 or 1/20 of the area. They're hardly changing anything. So I understand the concept, I understand the crosshatch is desired, but how heavily traveled is this area? I mean, is there a lot of traffic that's going to enter this neighborhood?
it dead ends both ways right now. So Eric Street dead ends, and then Lafayette Drive currently dead ends. Same with Parkwood Drive. So there isn't a lot of drive-through traffic just because there
Right. it's
isn't
dead
a
end.
lot
Cut off as
Right.
is.
connection.
So we're not really changing anything the way it exists. As a matter of fact, we're just kind of building roads and kind of keep it that way, except for the north-south main road going through. So I don't see a major deficiency if we approve this. I just don't.
Is only the northern, looks like the northern two lots, I think they're the same property owner. Those are the ones that are being considered for development right now, not the southern plot? Is that accurate?
Yep, just these, the property owners own, let me go back to the.
I think, yeah, those two look to be the same owner. I
Yep,
believe.
these are the two, yep, they're only applying to change the officially mapped road that's on their property. And there is no planned development for this property to be sold.
So even in current state, we would have a dead end on Eric at the southern part of that property. There would be no connection, well, as mapped right now, there would be a connection on Lafayette going through, so that would make a corner right there. But you would have a dead end at the property line where Eric would go.
Correct, myself.
Correct.
Until that property were to be divided.
Until the southern property is developed. So Eric would just go halfway through, we wouldn't have connection at Parkwood.
Yeah,
The Parkwood doesn't even go through.
Right, it doesn't go through, right, so- and Eric wouldn't go through all the way anyway, so,
I suspect what would happen in Public Works put the road in and connect with here going north. So it fell back over to Hazelwood.
Not
To
to,
Hazelwood.
Hazelwood is too.
go ahead, Ken.
I was just gonna say, I think what this allows the developer to do is build 5 houses right away without having to have cooperation to connect the rest of the street right through like has been planned historically here. So, I don't know, just from a planning standpoint, I can't support it.
To that point, Ken, I don't like the map that we currently have on, the official
yeah,
map anyway.
yeah, I don't.
I think a lot of it, I know, I
The
agree. It
topography.
looks like the topography is pretty difficult here, probably. This area looks, that connection's probably there because the topography seems a little bit more.
Do we know when this was made the official map?
It's probably been this way because I had the property owner that was up here at Eric and Hazelwood called, and I had to look back, and I think it's pretty much been that way since this area was subdivided. Because this dead ends right there, so I said to him, I'm sure if it would have been a permanent dead end, it would have just been cul-de-sac right away, but it wasn't designed that way.
And typically, when
Which,
the official maps and area development plans were done, did a lot of them around 2000. This might have been made prior. If you look on the east side, you'll see a lot of them drawn out.
It feels like 90s.
Correct,
what they did,
and at
yeah.
that point, cul-de-sacs were popular. But again, the topography and then some of the land ownership as well. You had homes built on Packer land, the city probably would not have put a roadway through an existing home.
Yeah.
So that could be another factor. All speculation, I wasn't here then. I don't know what they were thinking. All that.
Inferring some other things to the property owner to the south, I'm guessing based on where they have built their current home, probably does not have a desire at this point to be selling their property for development. So we're potentially setting ourselves up for a dead end on Eric at the southern property line, a dead end on Lafayette. So you're taking away a connectivity point from 2 different angles. I'm tending to agree with Ken here that I do not want to give up that option to have a connection through Lafayette to Eric, because I don't think you're going to get it to the south, at least anytime soon. That also noted to staff, I would love you to look at that map and can reconsider for the rest of it too at some
Well,
point.
the public committee said that those weren't even.
It was substandard probably for the plows to turn in the garbage trucks and everything, so.
I'm guessing when they were officially mapped, they were mid-sized vehicles.
Probably.
Do we need to open the floor for an alder to speak?
No, you can just bring it forward.
Okay, I'd like Alder Hicklis to make comment.
Yes. Can you go back to the other map? This one.
Okay.
So none of this exists today, and yes, it's on the long-term plan. But this is the Kubiak property. And for anybody that travels down West Mason, it's a huge property. They're up on a hill. There's fencing all the way around this. So whether Eric Street will actually ever come through is questionable. And then if you go back to their lot. This,
Oops, sorry.
these right here are all brand new, okay? So Lafayette comes off here. These homes were built about 5 years ago. Lafayette's supposed to go through here, but there's no way any of this, at least not in my generation, is going, this is not going to be modified. And they own the land. So technically, these homes, and these homes would still have to exit on Crestwood. But they would, you'd have 4 really nice lots, and it would be adding immediately to the tax base. So, and the Sackners own the land, so they're not gonna let it go through for development that way. I mean, to allow, I mean, they're not gonna sell to go this way. So if it stops here, even on the back when Eric comes through, there's still lots there though. So, as the alder, I am very familiar with the area. It's a small, it's a new, brand new neighborhood. I'd say maybe 5 years old. And this basically would just end right at the Sackner's driveway versus going through. Because that might be our plan, but that land is owned, so,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
I guess the concern I have is if we have 4 houses immediately built, then we've completely lost our ability to ever connect that ever again.
Correct.
And the lower property is not going to be built anytime soon.
Yes. Versus you do have an option to connect Lafayette through Eric and have a connection through there. I mean, you could just square it off right there, honestly, and the chance that Eric's actually gonna go through are probably pretty low. Either way, I can't support another cul-de-sac in an area that's already disconnected this much, so I would move to deny.
Second.
Do we have any further discussion?
Kind of covered everything I was.
Yeah, I just had a question on that. I guess it's a second lot. I know we have a motion on the floor, but do we not have restrictions on lot? It's a dumb question, but do we not have restrictions on lot sizes? Because the way this is,
There's a minimum, yeah.
but not a maximum.
Correct.
Because it's, okay, it just seems odd that 1247 lot is huge.
It's one big one, yeah.
And it is zoned rural residential as well. Which has a larger minimum lot size anyway. I'll go back to that.
Is it considered a hardship with the smaller lots on that area where it's, I think it was stated 100 feet for the depth of a lot? You could just make a longer lot, knowing it's a little bit less deep.
It meets minimum size requirements, even with
Either way.
100 feet.
Oh, well, never mind then.
If you made your lot at the minimum requirement for lot size, it would still meet
You could
it.
just do 75 by 100 deep and you'd meet the minimum.
Yes.
Another dumb question, as I'm saying. If I was to purchase this lot, 1247, could I build
You go to
a
the
mega
two ahead, I
mansion?
think.
What is that?
If you have enough money.
Right.
So there are no restrictions on the type of property that could go there as long as it's a residential?
Building.
Well, there's building code issues. You have to have your
Right.
setbacks and your maximum impervious surface and all of that,
Right,
but
all that.
yeah, you could build,
You could build a mega mansion right there. in the
sure,
middle
as
of-
large as you like.
That's the owner's plot. That's what they want to do.
And that's why it's the big one.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's where the tax rolls.
Okay, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Miller and a second by Commissioner Vinsky
The motion is to.
The
to
motion was to
deny,
deny.
as recommended by planning staff. Any further discussion? All right, so we'll go with a vote to deny the application. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we got 1 nay and 6.
Nay, two.
Oh, we've got 2 nays 5 yeas, and that goes on to city council then for the 25th.
Yep, and then there'll be a public hearing.
Okay, excellent, thank you. That's it. All right, moving on then to item 3, which is a public hearing. And this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items, and we invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you favor, oppose, or provide information, and your comments or concerns. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will now open up the public hearing on item number 3. Public hearing on a request for a conditional use permit to establish a general industrial use at 3885 Finger Road, submitted by Robert Mock and Cleveland Hardware and Forging on behalf of the City of Green Bay property owner.
Thank you, Chairperson Hanson. Okay, so the property in question is at the corner of South North View and Finger Road. It's northwest corner. It is a 12.7 acre parcel of property owned by the City of Green Bay. The applicant is Robert Mock and Cleveland Hardware and Forging. They have been working with the City of Green Bay for quite a while, looking for a location for their business. In May of 2022, the Grandview Industrial Park plan development was put into place. The industrial park started out in this area. I will mention that industrial park had been in the comprehensive plans for over 20 years. I-43 filled up, so then the expansion took place. I suppose you can click to the next one.
Okay.
So this is the future land use plan, shows commercial at the 2 intersections, and then the purple is business park. And then next is the zoning. Right now that is low density residential zone. However, that big black line that you can't really see underneath the blue line is the planned development area. And as a side note, there is, city has purchased, I believe, another 30 plus acres to go into the industrial park. You'll probably see that one coming in the near future. So land uses around this site. Right now it's vacant land. In the PUD to the north is rural residentially zoned property to the north, and that is vacant. To the south, you have some low density residential zoning, and there are some single family homes primarily cut off the frontage of Finger, with the majority of the farm property just south of that. To the east is the town of Humboldt, mainly farmland and some low-density residential units. And then to the west, as I had mentioned, is the Grandview Industrial Park and a new business going in there, Carnivore Foods, which I believe should be opening soon, if it's not currently. So as I mentioned, the 2022 Smart Growth Plan designates this area for commercial and business park uses, so the conditional use permit request is consistent with that recommendation of the comp plan. So as I mentioned, that Grandview Industrial Park is a planned unit development. The regulations were in your packet, so they have a specific set of regulations that are a little bit more strenuous than the regular code. In that code, general industrial land uses require a conditional use permit, which is what they're coming in for now. Light industrial is mainly warehousing, no outdoor storage. This use, as proposed, has some of those elements, so they would need a conditional use. If you want to go to the next one. What the site looks like now. And then this is the proposed site plan. We'll get to some better ones in a second. The applicant is proposing the construction of a 100,000 square foot manufacturing facility. Again, if that CUP is approved, it would have to meet all the codes of the Grandview Industrial Park plan development. We have done cursory reviews on their site plans, and it appears like it does meet them all, but that is something typical during site plan review and building permit processes. So as we go through, the applicant held a neighborhood meeting on May 29th, 2024. approximately 55 people were in attendance. The primary issues that were discussed or that came up at that meeting were noise, operations, roadway capacity and ability, and water lines. And in your report is kind of more detail of what those concerns were. So based on those concerns, the petitioners came back and redesigned some of their plans. And so I'm going to kind of go over those real quickly right now. Click on the next one. So this was the original concept plan as presented on the 29th. So you'll notice access for trucks was coming off the north part of the lot on Northview. For customers and employees was coming also off of Northview and Finger, coming into that main parking lot. The facility itself was centralized on the site. The outdoor storage area was put to the west, so it is wedged kind of in between Carnivore Industrial and this site itself. Some internal circulation, quite a bit of berming on the south and the southwest, and then on the north side of the site, and a little bit up on the northeast corner. And then heavy landscaping, which again is required by code, but it does look like it might be a little bit more than code. Again, we would review that at the time of site plan review. Do you want to go to the next one? Oops, one more back. There you go. And so this is revised after that neighborhood meeting. Basically what was done here, so the petitioner listened to the neighbors, kind of came up with some changes. The first change is they relocated that truck driveway from Northview, and you can kind of scroll back and forth if you like, Dina. So you can see that on the north side going to Northview. And if you go to the other one, that was removed. It is now relocated down to Finger Road on the west side of the site. So again, adjacent to the more industrial uses. Basically not to cause any issues on Northview itself. The Northview automobile driveway was moved to the north, so traffic does not impact neighbors directly across the street from that driveway. And then you'll notice a lot more berming went in along the southeast corner and the eastern side of the site, effectively trying to block headlights and whatnot from the parking lot to Northview. Those berms would be 4 feet high and have vegetation on top of them. The way code is written right now, parking lots typically a 4-foot screen is what you need to block headlights. So essentially they would be doing that with the berm and then with the landscaping. And then they also conducted an acoustic study to basically demonstrate lower than code allowed sound levels coming out of the business. Where they have a lot of their noisier type uses, the pounding and that kind of stuff is forged. Those are situated on the west side of the building and the north side of the building. So again, to be situated away from the streets and the neighbors. So in your staff report, you'll see the conditional use has 7 criteria that need to be met. Standards, I should say. I won't read through them all since you probably know them all already, but they are in here. And actually, if you want to go through, I'll run through the rest of these slides because they have some pretty good ones. So this was the original concept, sort of a 3D rendering. Go to the next. So this is how it would change with the berming. Kind of hard to tell on here, but you can kind of see how it's raised up berming. Go to the next one. Again, same type of thing. Berming, revised. And I think that's going to be it here. Yes. So I will leave it at that since this is a public hearing.
Okay. All right, so now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on this item. If you just state your name and address for the record, come forward to the podium.
I guess I'll go first. I'm Bill Hoban. I'm current owner of Cleveland Hardware and Forging Company. Locally, you guys know it as Green Bay Drop Forge, and spoke to many of you on my story, and I appreciate the summary you gave. You took a lot of things we were going to talk about out, not knowing how this was going to work, but that's fine. So we've been at the same location for 110 years. As mentioned, we've been working with the city for a while. this area, I think it might have even been May of '22 when Wendy suggested it as a possible place for us, but I know I only have 3 minutes. I just want to talk about kind of how we got to what we're trying to do now. You guys, as the city, are looking at how the city will expand and grow and attract talent, and that's the same thing we're doing. We've been around for 110 years. We want to be around for another 110 years. So looking at our facilities, our equipment, knew that at my Illinois facility, I had a press line that has been down and it's beyond its useful life, so that caused me to search out a replacement for that press line. The property I have in Illinois is 3 acres. There's really no room to put that press, so I was looking at where else could I put it. I looked at different spots nearby in Illinois, but really was interested in making the new investments in our technology in Green Bay, Wisconsin, where I live, and where I felt at first perhaps we'd have the room on our existing property. The more we vetted that property and our long-term strategic plan for growth and improvement of our facilities, as well as the ability to operate a going concern with a lot of construction going on, started looking at properties that were already built but had one of the key requirements that we would need, which would be a 40-foot portion of the building being 40-foot. The red colored areas where our forging facility would be, and that's where the press line that needs the height would be. So you don't find a lot of large buildings. We did find one in De Pere. Went extensively, tried to make that work. It did have available property for us to expand, but the existing building there was just going to be too much for us to try to accommodate in that space. Came back to the city, talking to Wendy and Matthew about where we were at with things, and said, what else does the city have to offer? And actually came back with a number of places, but one was the Grandview area, which again, the city talked to us about a while ago. But again, our original thought was, let's stay where we've been for the last 110 years if we can, because we've been a good part of the city of Green Bay, and they are okay with us staying there, but also want to help us if we needed a different location. So that's what got us to this location. Been working with Shoe Construction and Bob Mock and the codes and the things that we need to do to acclimate to this community. And I think with the many rounds of conversations, we've got ourselves to the point where we think we can move into this and build to the layout we have here. As you mentioned, we took the notes from the neighbors. One of the neighbors was asking us in this Grandview community, how about the area that I believe the city just officially purchased? But when we came back after that meeting and talked to Matthew and Wendy, and we realized that we had looked at that location, and the size of it was much larger than we needed. When we were vetting different areas around a 20-mile radius, we said, we're looking for something that's 10 to 20 acres. This 30-acre parcel that you have has quite a bit of wetland that would make it difficult for us to build on that. So that's what led us over to this site, and where we've been spending the majority of our time and energy to figure out, is this going to be a spot for us?
And can you please state your address for the record too, please? And it has been 3 minutes.
Our current address?
The address for record.
Okay, we're currently at 1341 South State Street, Green Bay Drop Forge.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Just state your name, come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, I've been here before. Name is Jim Gretza, address is 3667 Finger Road. First of all, touched very lightly about what this really means. I haven't, we heard about it being a forge. Moving from light industrial to heavy industrial, not general, it's heavy industrial, is a big change. This business has been located for 100 and some years, so all the neighbors in the current location moved to that site knowing there was a factory there. The neighbors are already here, and you want to put a forge shop across the street from people's residential property. So I'm going to try to keep it short. Do you know where the Ford shop is? Have you been to the parcel to see where these people live and what's going to be happening? If the answer to any of those two is no, you don't have enough information to make a decision on this. At the neighborhood meeting, we were told that the doors will remain closed even during the summer. So it could be 90 degrees and 70% humid, 70-degree dew point. I think this needs to be a condition of the use of this property. They say they're going to keep the doors closed, then keep them closed. This is a noise issue we're talking about. This isn't just, I can see the building. This is a noise issue. At the neighborhood meeting, we were told that the noise levels outside the factory would be no more than 60 decibels. We were also told that 60 decibels is a conversation. I don't know if that's a conversation at a bar or a conversation in the back of a church. There was a reference made to the fact that the sound levels would be lower than the city's limit. City's limit is 80 decibels. Now, if you don't know how loud this stuff is, I don't know how you can make a decision. OSHA requires hearing protection be provided when it's 85 decibels. So if they're saying it's going to be less than 60, make it a condition. The neighbors would really appreciate it. I would like to see penalties that are substantial if they violate this, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, my conversation hopefully is not objectionable to you. Maybe I talk at 60 decibels. But a hammer at a drop forge place, even if the sound outside the building is 60 decibels, it goes bang, 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 bang. 10 hours a day, starting at 5 a.m. is what we were told. Another condition I wanted to put on here is the hammer. Now, they got presses, that's fine. Hammers should not be used except between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. You would not like to live there. The planning department told me, last second, told me that,
Is that? All right. Thank you very much.
told me that they're following the rules. There's one rule that's not being followed, and it's love your neighbor. These people are people, and don't use the mighty dollar to make people's lives miserable.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? I know.
My name's Wes Dorner, and I live on 707 South Northview Road, right across the property. My question is, the Grandview Industrial Park. Back when they straightened out Mason, Finger Road, went over to Mason Street, put the curbs in, I believe it was 2005. We were down here at a meeting. The north side road was supposed to stay residential, south side industrial. Before he said it was over 20 years, that's a lie. That was said when Rentmeesters owned that land. He said, I want the property for the city to have it, you know. But we were supposed to be residential. And I lived there for, what, 22 years? And now we get this coming to my front yard. I think it's BS. I'm glad we're trying to work with the neighbors. Well, what's the city gonna do for us? They had them coming out here because they want the riverfront cleaned up so they can move the coal piles, move the next business out. What are they doing for us? On the west end of that property is a ditch. The city refuses to clean it. There's water in that Finger Road ditch, half full, because it can't travel to the north where it's supposed to go. time the city helps out the neighbors. I see, at least they've moved the driveway. Northview Road is it's not made for that kind of traffic, okay? That intersection, semis, if they didn't move where the semis were, there'd be accidents that are steady. Okay? I mean, that's a heavily traveled road. People coming into work at 6 in the morning, it's steady through there. So, I want the city to work with the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, Bob Mock with Mock 4 Engineering and Surveying, 2260 Saltscheider Court, Green Bay. We are the petitioners on behalf of Cleveland Hardware and the City of Green Bay. As Bill had mentioned earlier, we reconfigured quite a bit of the site to meet the neighborhood concerns voiced at the meeting. Primary concerns were traffic and noise. We moved the truck traffic to Finger Road, which is a county highway designated for this type of traffic, and moved the automobile entrance for the parking lot on Grandview farther to the north of the existing residences, added the berms to protect those residences from both the noise and headlights in the lot. So we've made a lot of accommodations. The building, the way it has been designed, Bill mentioned the forge area is in the red portion of the building. When we were going through the design iterations here, we assembled this building so the noise-producing elements were at the center of the property, and then put building around it, created an envelope of additional building beyond that building, and then also added the berms. We did have an acoustic study done to predict what those noise levels would be at the property line. At the south, and we have submitted that to the city. At the south property line, the area closest to the forge, those predicted noise levels are 66 decibels. On the west side, there were two ratings, 61, I believe, and then they did actually analyze it with the doors open, because there will be times that they may move things in and out, and the doors may be open momentarily. But those noise levels were at 79 decibels, which still meets the requirements of the city of Green Bay of 80 decibels. And that limit was at the common property line with Carnivore Meats, another industrial user, so likely not very impacted. One thing that study did not necessarily take into account was those buildings around it. They just looked at the original building, like if the red building were a standalone. So we're confident that we will be well below the city requirements for noise. We also addressed vibration. That was a concern with the city water mains through there, well below the allowable limits for that. And this study has been shared with the water department as well. Just wanted to reiterate that this is an application for the conditional use for general industrial, not heavy, and we feel like we've done a pretty decent job of addressing the neighborhood concerns. And it's the goal of Cleveland Hardware to be good neighbors for this area. So that was a concern of ours and at the forefront of our design process. So once we get into the action item, if you have any more discussions or questions, our design team is here to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 4, consideration with possible action on request for a conditional use permit to establish a general industrial use at 3885 Finger Road, submitted by Robert Mock and Cleveland Hardware and Forging on behalf of the City of Green Bay property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I won't go over the whole presentation once again, but I do want to make the statement that staff does believe the design was very thoughtfully done, meets the, as far as we can tell at this time, the regulations of the Grandview Industrial Park. The building layout really does help to address potential noise levels. Staff does feel that the 80, which is in our municipal code, and any property owner can go up to 80 at the property line, is the standard of the community. We would not recommend making that even more. We think the berms and the additional landscape were, again, very thoughtful, above and beyond code requirements. Also, the adjustments to the site plan, including the driveway locations, the shift of operations for the entire truck traffic. Also, it was a direct response to neighborhood concern and not necessarily staff concern. I will comment on one thing from the Department of Public Works. They are not here today, but they did say that if Northview needs to be reconstructed up to that driveway, that was something they would be analyzing at that point. So with that said, Alder Grant, adjacent property owners of the subject property have been notified of the request. We also notified the town of Humboldt. Across Northview is the town of Humboldt, so we just sent our notification to the clerk there and not to the homeowners. But they were all notified. We had a couple inquiries just asking what was going on, but no formal objections at this point. We are recommending approval of the request, subject to compliance with zoning ordinance 1923, which is the Grandview Industrial Park plan development, as well as all other regulations in the city.
All right, thank you, David. So now, assuming somebody did bring this up as far as stormwater management, that's all going to be addressed during the site plan review.
Correct, they'd have to address stormwater. It does appear on their plans, there is a stormwater pond sort of in the center of their, on the western side of the site where the trucks circulate.
Right.
But also, I believe as part of Grandview Industrial Park, and it might not be on the north side of Mason, but on the south, the thought was probably regional detention over individual detention. But I think that's probably going to be more on the south side.
I have a few questions. What's the difference between the light industrial and general industrial? I know you said the storage was one of them.
Correct. So really, basically, and in the zoning code, you can see the definitions in our industrial section, but I can give it to you really simply. Light industrial is going to be all interior stuff, mainly warehousing, light manufacturing, processing. When you get to general industrial, that's going to have some outdoor storage potentially, and a little more heavy manufacturing element. And when you get to heavy industrial, you're talking rock crushing, slaughterhouses, intense outdoor use that are anticipated to have heavy impact on the surrounding area. So that's kind of how you can break down the light, general, and heavy, the way our code does it. And in Grandview, anything general or heavy requires council review with a conditional use. So conditions can be, they can look at each site individually to see what conditions would be most appropriate.
And my other question is, do those decibel requirements follow any sort of time restrictions? Like, is 5 a.m. too early to be doing that? Or is that still safe any time of day, night?
Anytime.
Okay, thank you.
And those are the same decibel levels that you would get with, again, any type of use, commercial use or residential use.
Well, and now this is the CUP, so, working with Act 67 and what we find reasonable, I mean, we're kind of tied a little bit with the CUP.
Yeah, so I don't know if we went over that extensively last time, but so CUPs are conditional use permits. They're assumed to be permitted uses as long as the developer can meet the reasonable conditions of those 7 standards that you have in the zoning code, and then other reasonable conditions that come up during this process. So Yeah, the Act 67 kind of removes the ability to arbitrarily refuse a conditional use permit. That was a state statute change in 2017.
In regards to the site plan specifically, it looks like, I'm guessing the wetlands part are on the northwest part of it, just based on what I'm seeing.
I don't know if those are wetlands. I think that is more, it could be wetlands.
It just seems that's where they kind of focused the building and everything more towards the eastern part of it. And the stormwater retention was off towards the west. And the only reason I'm asking that is why and this may be better for the applicant, but why it's being pushed more towards the east compared to the west, where we already have an existing development there, industrial development, versus more towards the east where there is that rural residential that's out there. In addition, I also noticed the berms are shown as 8 feet on the northern and western parts of the property, but only 4 feet on the southern and eastern part. So there's obviously the ability and desire to build 8-foot berms on those areas where there is not residential facing across the street, but only 4-foot berms on the other sides. I know the forfeits meet code. I'm just wondering if that's a condition we can maybe consider, is making them all 8-foot berms to help keep things a little bit more, the noise a little bit more contained.
Sure, and some of those questions probably the developer would answer. I suspect, they're keeping the more heavy or general industrial outdoor storage truck movements next to the industrial users rather than next to the residential users.
Okay.
But again, they would have to answer that. It seems logical that they would do that. The berming may have to do with topography, how much room they have to work with.
Sure.
But that would be definitely a question for the applicant. And yeah, you can augment any condition that is relevant to the use. It couldn't be something that's not relevant, like I want the building to be purple, which doesn't really have any effect. But transportation, screening, any of that stuff, those conditions are all very viable.
But the 4-foot berm does meet what the code is, right?
Correct, the code wouldn't require any berming.
Okay, sorry, so that is above and beyond already with the 4-foot plus vegetation.
They would have to do some type of screening, whether that's vegetation, fencing. Berming is always our preferred if we have the room. But, yeah.
Okay.
And I guess to kind of give you a point, even fencing in the industrial areas is limited to 8 feet height.
Any further questions for staff?
I'll make a motion to move as recommended.
I'll second that, but I got a question. Just general, where is the water main? Just so we can see it.
Water, there is a very large water line that runs all the way to the water source in Lake Michigan that connects all the way through. I believe it's a 60-inch.
Right.
Huge water main that goes to a feeder station at the corner of Finger and Grandview.
Yes.
And that gets distributed throughout.
And that's to the north?
To the south.
To the south.
It's to the south? It's south
To
of
the
Finger Road?
west, it's the west of Carmel.
Well, to the west is the substation, but the line is running basically underneath Finger Road.
Oh, under Finger Road?
Or in the terrace.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
It's not going through the site.
Okay. At that location.
Right. Public Works is planning on extending utilities further east along Finger, so that's currently in the works.
Okay. Because the city literally ends on the east side of this drawing, right?
Correct.
Okay, is there any plans regarding the road, any north-south there? I know
Northview?
Finger Road is relatively new. Yes, it's to the west.
There are no current plans to upgrade that, but Public Works is looking at it to see if it needs to be addressed with this development.
Okay.
We're evaluating that as part of probably the
So
development agreement.
Fingers new up to that curve there?
Right, if you go to the aerial photo, it cul-de-sacs at Carnivore,
Yeah.
so it stops at that point. Mason Street, then when it hits that plane, turns into Finger Road.
Okay, and so that S on the left, that angled part, that's new. But not
Well,
with,
that's Mason Street.
well, I'm just looking at the road, I don't care if it's Mason or Finger. So Mason comes up, and that's relatively new, and then when it turns into Finger there, that's been there for a while. Okay, just wanna get the lowdown.
You're talking about the part that got reconstructed in 2005-ish?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all that Mason part up to that.
Mason's,
Yeah.
Okay. And do we know, and there's a lot of good information that they submitted in terms of decimal sound, and there's some vibration analysis that was submitted. I'm a geotechnical engineer, so that was kind of exciting for me to see this stuff.
I read it as well, Tim, and that was not exciting for me.
And I would expect there'd be a geotechnical analysis on this property to verify the vibration, you know, that it will go across the property.
They would work with the water department and public works to determine what would need to be done
Okay.
as far as studies or analysis. Typically, that all comes during site plan review, so when they're pulling their permits, in this case, it's come up as a topic because of the conditional use permit.
Okay, well, I'm sure that that will happen simply because they've been in business 110 years, and you don't do that by accident, so.
We are, being this a city-owned property that we're marketing for industrial developments, we have been working to do a lot of those studies for environmental, geotech, wetland.
Oh, are there any borings on that property?
We've been doing some recently.
Some have been performed?
Robert Mock would be able to
Okay.
speak more to that.
Okay, so they've been able to look at that data. Okay, thank you.
So
Can I
we
ask a
we have-
question as the alternate?
No. Oh, yes, yes, go ahead, I'm sorry, my bad. Yes, absolutely.
So I know the time got brought up as far as the decimals. Can we put a time restriction on that?
You can?
Because I would like to see that as alder of this district. So yeah, we can kind of discuss that aspect before you guys take a vote.
We have a motion. We have any discussion?
Yeah, again, when staff looked at the decibel levels, we looked at, they were under
They're
city
under
code required ones, and so, again, it could be a use that had no, was not a forge, could have been any type of use, they would have still been held to that level, so staff didn't feel the need to go further. But as a conditional use permit, you could, if you feel it's relevant.
So I just have just a really simple clarifying question. So I, as a residential property owner, if I wanted to run a vacuum that was 80 decibels on my property line any time of day or night, that's permitted, right? Okay, so they're not really asking to do anything that any average property owner couldn't do in terms of noise level 24 hours a day?
Correct.
Okay, just making sure I was totally clear on that. Thank you.
Well, we do have a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky and a second by Alder Hutchinson to approve as recommended by staff. Do we have any further discussion?
I do want to honor the alder's request to at least talk about the condition of, I believe, operating hours. But if you want to do procedure and
I guess, that would be a question for it.
Yeah, I'd be willing to suspend my motion.
Jim, you okay with that? Is the
You
second
okay with
one?
suspending the second?
Sure.
For a moment?
Yeah.
motion to open the floor to ask questions of the applicant.
Second.
And a motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? If if the applicant could come forward then, you have some questions.
Who's ever got the technical?
I was gonna say-
Bob, probably.
Yeah, I can ask the technical and any of the operational stuff, Carrier Bill.
I'll ask mine really quick on the berming. I think I got your answer from the look, but I'm guessing that was a choice on the property to do 4-foot versus 8-foot.
Right, so if we can go back to one of the site plans, and show on there. So the 8-foot berms, okay, the 8-foot berms where we have them are primarily to screen the outdoor general industrial. These are their steel stock areas, the loading areas and so forth.
Trucks coming in now.
The 4-foot, like Dave had mentioned, weren't even required. They were more of a response to a request of the neighbors to screen the cars. We do run out of room there to put an 8-foot berm. An 8-foot berm takes about 60 feet. A 4-footer will take about 30. So we're actually using beyond what the setback is there to put those berms in. We will add vegetation on top of it. Going higher on that berm was a concern for the owners, just because you lose all visibility into your parking stalls, and it becomes a bit of a safety concern, like you're inside of another wall, basically.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you have other? What about the hours of operation?
Well, so what's stated in here?
5 to 3. I guess I have a hard time putting a condition on that, just at this point. If your neighbor was outside hitting a hammer, there's nothing you can do.
That's where
Like, it could be residential and it would still
I feel like after 10 o'clock, I would call it.
Oh, you would call it, we have no numbers.
Yeah.
It's not like it's-
Right.
But the way this is set up, I think this is absolute. I think it's unnecessary.
Alder, was there a question or something you wanted to pose? I don't think we're seeing much of a desire to add the condition. Is there one that you want to put forth?
Well, I think what people are saying, the difference of vacuuming your car or temporarily hitting a hammer for a couple hours, that's a small sliver of the time. This is going to be consistently every single day. So, like they said, they have lived here for a long time. If you want to be a good neighbor, they're moving out here, so you have an atmosphere that these neighbors and residents are used to. And they're trying to compromise on that, and I think restricting the time is helpful. Some people have young families, young kids that are napping, sleeping, all that. So they're gonna have to work through all of that as it is. But I think 5 in the morning is very early. I mean, imagine that. Imagine laying in your bed and having your dogs barking because now all of a sudden they're hearing doom, doom. So I think, I don't know, to the residents it's hard, but I don't know if 7 o'clock is a little bit more tolerable.
Right.
And in any time as well.
We're not
That's point of order.
Yeah.
So I just think being reasonable, I'm not asking for 10 to 2. I mean, like business hours.
So the request is to make the hours of operation for the entire thing?
Just
to
the
be-
the louder hammer.
Is that something that's even, makes sense from a business standpoint to?
That would have to defer to Carrier Bill on that. So there's 2 processes in there that was brought up earlier. There's the hammer, which is kind of what we're talking about. That's the louder of the 2, and then the press, which is, that could run 24/7. Next door neighbors wouldn't know about it, so. But the hammer, I think they can talk to the hours about that. Because you had requested 5 to 3.
Well, we currently start at 5, but that's normally just our warm-up session. We're not actually hitting the hammers at 5. I don't know if you know what time they normally are actually hitting the hammers at.
It's not, noise complaint, we already have regulations.
Right, they'd be able to call the city to complain about noise, a nuisance.
Condition.
And would the city test the decibel
Yeah.
and say they're within the allowable sound?
The police department and the inspection division both have noise meters.
I mean,
It sounds like red tape, it's a red tape connection.
I guess I'm satisfied. I don't know if there's any other questions.
Do we have any further questions of the applicant?
Good. Motion to close the floor?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Daniels to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did you guys come up with a time?
We decided that that was, no.
Well, okay, Ken's got his motion on the floor, so I think we should let him. Ken, do you want to keep your motion as is?
Yes, I do.
And then Alder Hutchinson, still with the second?
Yes.
So no conditions, so that's,
I mean, that if it's the same thing as a nuisance complaint, that if it was.
it's treated like every other.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm okay with that.
All right, so a motion on the floor by Commissioner Ravinsky and a second by Alder Hutchinson. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead with the vote then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward then to City Council for June 25th. Moving on to item number 5, which is a public hearing. And this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. I know you're also.
Yeah, go ahead. You do you.
The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. We'll now open the public hearing on item number 5. Public hearing on a request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for the property located at 2532 University Avenue, 2540 University Avenue, and 2500 Block University Avenue from a combination of light industrial and commercial land uses to medium, high-density residential use.
Thank you, Chair. So what we're looking at here are the properties located along University Avenue. There are 3 of them. The largest one would be the apartment complex you've been seeing for the past few years as it's been redeveloping up along the Packerland packaging site in years past. The northwest corner of this whole area would be the Gorman development that was approved by this board or recommended by this board and approved by council back in the spring last year. And if you drive by,
It's
there's
a lot in there, yeah.
Yep. And on this photo as well, even though this is from 2023, there's also the Gentle Vet animal clinic that is off to the east of this. So why we're here is there is a request from the one person in the room right now to allow for the parcel that you see right here, the last of them, where it was the old gas station on the site, for that to be multifamily use. It's owned by the same owner as the property down here. So as staff looked at this, we looked at, what is the existing comprehensive plan for the area? It still is light industrial and commercial out there. Now you think, okay, good question, why is that way? Now the University Avenue plan from back in the mid-teens called for this area to be a mix of both multifamily and a little bit of park space in this area. So when there were the changes back in the mid-teens to allow for the zoning, which you see right here, that site to the south was zoned that way. That's where that came into play, just basing off of the plan recommendations from the University Avenue plan. Additionally, that northwest corner, that was a planning development, so while it still has the baseline zoning of commercial, it is a PUD in that site. So as we looked for the next future action as far as the rezone, we looked at these 3 properties and thought, compared to what was out there in that plan for back to University Avenue, where it calls for a mix of both multifamily and some connection for park space, it would make sense in general to change D3 here, potentially over to have a future land use that would be more in line with multifamily. And that's a request. So as noted here, this is the plan for the apartment complex that is to the south. And then what you're seeing here would be some of the renderings of basically lofts. We can't see a street view, even though it was done back in July of 2023, because there's been a lot of development in the past 10 months out there.
Yeah.
And so what you'd see is a field. But what they're looking to do, now this is just a concept, it's not a site plan at all, is to put in some multifamily then that would be connected back into that site that is to the south. So overall, the idea is to expand, to essentially codify what the University Avenue plan had recommended and change these 3 parcels to have the mix changed over to medium high density residential.
All right. So with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak on this item. Don't wait until the 3rd time. If you would like to speak, we would love to hear from you. We don't need to hear from you, but if you would like to speak.
No, John said it perfectly. Yeah, this is all multifamily. Sorry, Brad Reimer with Veerbecker. We're at 400 Security Boulevard, 50313. The whole site, the whole area here is kind of being developed into multifamily, and what we have is a code, a map that says otherwise. So we're looking to just update that map and to fit everything that's actually happening here. So as part of it, the old gas station site, we would look to just combine that into the Elevate site, essentially eliminate the property lines and have one development. So that's the end goal for me at least. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 6, consideration with possible action on a request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for the property located at 2532 University Avenue, 2540 University Avenue, and 2500 Block University Avenue from a combination of light industrial and commercial land use to medium high-density residential land use.
So staff does recommend approval of those parcels to go from the mix to the one single medium to high-density residential classification. So to note then for the next item as well, if you were to approve a rezone, so there's different notification statuses that when it comes for public class hearings with this in the papers. So for this item, if it were to be approved here, it will not go on until the July Common Council for a first hearing and then into August, which will delay them how the rezone goes as well if that were to be approved, because you need to have the comp plan done before you have the rezone done. It's just a little bit of cleaning up action. No.
Has a traffic impact analysis been completed on this project?
No, there has not been one. Because
However, when the larger Packerland site was done that has almost all the units, I think this was only like an additional 20 or something.
It's 24.
It's 24.
Right? So when the Packerland site was done, the city did look at traffic impacts.
That's crazy.
And could university handle that? This would be a small amount compared to the overall.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's an answer or not.
I'll take it. Is there a point, is there a park, is there a green space here?
So,
It's
you
green.
can see on here, there's a connection where it has to go for a pathway. When it came to development patterns, as far as who owned things, it's a concept, right? But as far as chicken and eggs, it's who did things first. Ended up being this parcel first who started doing things, and they had a plan set with that, independent of these 2 parcels, which were owned by, well, this one was never owned by Junin, this was later on in the process. So there's connections back to Bear Creek.
Mainly down Rothy Lane.
Rothy.
It does go onto the Twinen property through easements, because of the grades out there.
I've never been past that way. I mean, that
After
way.
it's all developed.
Yeah.
It's a nice part of Bear Creek.
Can I make a comment? I am totally for this project. But if we compare that to the first development we had, it looks identical to me, because you got cul-de-sac equivalent things, a lot of buildings going up. But there's not up and down and cross, okay? You know what I'm saying? There's a cul-de-sac, but if you look at the rest of the property, where everything's going, you know what I'm saying? See?
But this is a
look at-
development site versus
Right.
road grid.
Exactly. So my point is, it seems okay here, which I totally agree with. Yet, when it's public streets, we kind of treat it differently, and I guess, should we, I guess?
Well, go ahead.
This could have, back in, when the comp plan was done and back in the, we're doing many of these official maps back in the 90s and 2000s. There could have been a thought of saying, let's put some roads through here in the future. But one, you still have packaging going on.
Yeah.
So nobody would have thought at that point to put
No.
roads through here.
No way.
Two, with the terrain, to how things go, for all intents and purposes, it would end up being a cul-de-sac because you
Right.
can't go south of that. Whereas,
I understand.
back to the other ones, those are neighborhoods that just happen to have big gaps in them still.
Right.
I hear you, there could have been a way to maybe connect things back over to Rocky at some point, but, yeah.
Although we did, when we went through this with tuning, I was involved with that, making the double connection, so that what looks like a cul-de-sac in there is not a road, that is a driveway that looks like a road.
Right.
But then we do have the connection where it was feasible to Rocky because of the grades. So we did make a point to get the two connections of it at least.
Awesome.
Which is, I can't remember if they didn't like that or not, but I don't know if they did.
I'm making a very lame
I don't
point.
think so.
I don't think they did at the time, but they'll be happy at the end.
Yeah.
No, I totally support this development.
Is there a motion?
I was gonna say.
Move to approve?
There were no motions.
All right, move to approve.
One.
Second.
Wait, I heard like 3 seconds.
Whoever wants, second
Take the
thought.
nearest one. Take the nearest.
Okay. All right, so we've got a motion by Vice Chair Miller, a second by Commissioner Lutzel. So, that's right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then this one will go for July,
This one here will go into July because of noticing.
versus the
Correct.
zoning.
Yep.
Gotcha, okay. All right, and then moving on to item number 7, which is a public hearing, and this public hearing has been properly posted, and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Planning Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will now open the public hearing on item number 7. Public hearing on a request for a rezone at 2532 University Avenue from general commercial to varied density residential, submitted by Steve Beta of Verbicker, RTH LLC, property owner.
Take a chair. So this is going to just the single parcel that's about 1 acre off University Avenue, the old gas station site. So existing zoning for that area, QD to the west, and to the south would be, sorry, this visual line is right here. Existing zoning is for this, shouldn't be that color, but it is R3 to the south, and it is to the west, it's commercial, but it has the PUD on top of it. So this would get all the area into one similar pattern. And as mentioned by the applicants, their intent is to combine and make this into one overall development. With, as we happened to see from before, their clubhouse and parking for it would be just to the south, the existing property line, but will go away here in the future.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 8. Consideration with possible action on a request for a zoning district change at 2532 University Avenue from general commercial to varied density residential submitted by Steve Vita of Verbicker, RTH LLC property owner.
Thank you, Chair. Staff recommends rezone. Not from C3, from C1. That should not be that way. From C1 to R3.
Cool, move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Vice Chair Miller, a second by Commissioner Lutzow. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And that will go, then, will be held on, that will
Right.
also go.
That will go to the next meeting, but there won't be one then in June, in July, that they'll hold at that point to where everything gets approved, if this were to be approved by council now, in August at the first meeting.
Which is typical when we have a comprehensive zone change. We'll hold the zone change until they get to the council together. People don't have to come to multiple meetings. Council people don't have to try to figure out what happened in the packets.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll probably see more of this in the future. In the past, it seems like they put the plan developments and didn't change the underlying zoning in most cases. And I think our practice is going to be different in the future to change those zoning. So that's what
Okay.
work.
All right, moving on to informational. Director's report.
All right, so we did include a development tracker in the packet. I'll just comment on a few projects. At county council, just this last meeting, they did approve the Veterans First project on the PUD on St. Anthony. The meeting before that, they also approved the development agreement for 221 Cherry Street, the 8-story project proposed by Newland, which you guys had considered for PUD shortly beforehand. Some other updates. Unfortunately, at the last RDA, we did have to terminate the development agreement for the 200 North Monroe project.
It's year one.
Is that?
The yellow,
Yeah.
that's
With the hands on the building?
Yeah.
That's the one, yes, that is the one.
It's unfortunate. We were working with that developer for many years, and unfortunately, they just weren't able to get the money to work. So we are releasing an RFP to attract some new developers. That should go out here any day. So we hope to be back soon with a new proposal. Get something exciting.
What's the feeling there? It seems like, I mean, I think I was impressed with what we saw on 221, 2, I forget which one.
221.
But it was just interesting to see something of that scale, so I'm just, is it heating up? Are we actually getting more opportunities or hearing back on these RFPs more?
We are. We had 11 developers submit proposals for the Badger Sheet Metal site on South Broadway.
Wow.
So lots of interest there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there continues to be interest. I think that this developer on Monroe, they had a market study done that showed tremendous need for additional housing at that luxury level. The investors, however, were a little bit concerned that the market, even though the market study said otherwise, they got a little scared off by the amount of new housing coming online with the new land project. So they got a little bit of cold feet. That being said, we're going to continue to push for big, exciting projects. We'll consider a variety of new housing types there, whether that's dense townhomes, maybe more on the east side, near the single-family housing to the east, maybe something a little more dense on the west side. We'd love to see another grocery store proposal. We'll continue to push for that. Otherwise, we are also putting out RFPs to attract development on the RDA-owned site at Chicago and Monroe. as well as the parking lots that we own behind the proposed public market on Broadway and Hubbard. So RDA owns those properties, and we expect to be putting out some pretty cool proposals pretty soon once we start engaging with more developers.
Is that what they were thinking about, parking
Yes.
with
Yes.
commercial and about? or something of
Precisely.
that
So the vision there, and we're working closely with On Broadway on this, we're actually partnering on this RFP. There is a desire for structured parking, a ramp at that site, so we would be looking to do multiple stories of ramped parking, housing above, maybe some commercial on the bottom floor.
Housing above ramps or the?
Yes, yes. Yep, that's actually pretty common in a lot of larger cities. Staff feels that a parking ramp that's just a parking ramp is an underutilization of land. You know, we could have some additional housing there, additional property value, so that's what we're aiming for.
What about, I know the city does not own this, but the WPS lot, they've made the decision to pretty much clear it at this point. Is there any role that the city is playing to help find somebody for that? It's starting to look like a sore thumb is why.
Absolutely, no, it's very much on our radar. We are engaged with WPS, have been for a long time and will continue to be. You know, we've put out some concepts of how we would love to see that site be redeveloped with higher density housing, more commercial. There's been talk of an additional ramp on the north side of that to support the KI Convention Center. Again, maybe with some housing above. So yeah, we will continue to be at the table to see something move forward there. Right now, it's owned and controlled by WPS, and we're staying tuned. When they're ready to move something forward, we'll be there.
Is the parking ramp on Main being utilized?
That's getting near the end of its life.
Right.
I understand.
It's ending the near of its useful life. It's getting close to being done, and.
But the RDA in the city doesn't own that.
We own the land, yes. But we may not moving forward. You know, after that ramp comes down, there's the potential that would be sold off to an adjacent property owner. So we would be looking to replace that.
Isn't it promised to someone else, though?
Promise to shrub.
It's a shrubbery, but
I think
development.
they get the right person.
I think we have somebody here on the panel.
Make sure that's on
Help us.
Is that on the record?
I know what's going on right now. What about those two spots on Adams Street, right by Mason Street, where there's just parking right by, and then there's that one flat, I mean, it was a warehouse and then another warehouse. Like, they're both just flat lots right
At a
now.
corner from each other? Or
Yeah, basically, right across from Mason Street from each other.
Yeah.
Right, so the one to the south side, southwest, so along the water,
Right.
yeah, so there was a development agreement on that one. There was around 100 units proposed on that side at one
Right.
point. Unfortunately, that developer passed away. And so that is currently being considered to be put up for sale by the heirs.
Because they had a whole development because people were complaining about how close it was to the bridge and worried about apartments and being real close to the bridge, so I mean, that came through here.
Is that St. John's?
Right, it's near St. John's, well, no, that, you're thinking about the closer one, there's one that's right on the water where the cherry trees, or the apple trees, the crab apple trees used to be, right on the Fox River Trail, the Fox River Trail right there. There's a bunch of cherry trees, and there's just it used to be a blue warehouse building.
Oh, no,
And
I'm
now
talking
it's
about
been
the one
flat.
between the fire station and the park.
Yep, yeah, that's,
I was
yeah.
about to get to
Yep,
that one.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep, okay, that's
The one thing that was really nice about that is the rest of the sole owner did go through a land swap with the city to get the trail.
With the
along
trail
the
flip-flopped
river again.
close to the
So,
river, I remember that,
I mean,
yeah.
even without the development, which I suspect will come soon, there's already was improvements that are.
Right.
Yeah.
And the remediation of the site and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the one I was talking about, I know
Okay,
they
yeah,
dug
yeah.
something up and they
Right.
refilled it, or?
I think they remediated whatever.
Yep, it's a brownfield site, there's some contamination there that needed to be addressed. We have been, we've reached out to that property owner just to get an update and to learn if that was becoming available. It's not currently for sale, they told us they're getting ready for that, so we hope soon.
Something, okay.
All right.
I just have one more thing to add. for the comp plan, the Go Big Green Bay initiative. So we had met on the 3rd, and we already had hit quite a few. So June is our public outreach, staff's public outreach. So we, if you remember correctly, went to the Downtown Farmers Market, had a pop-up booth, the Monk Community Fair, Pet Walk, actually it was in Harvard, but Pet Walk, Green Bay, Levitt Amp concert series. We went to the Pride Resource Fair and the Broadway Farmers Market. And what's coming up later this month is going to be the Military Avenue Market. We'll have a booth at Bay Beach for Kids Day. And then we'll be at the Oneida Farmers Market. So that's what will be coming up in June. Staff will also be reaching out to adjoining municipalities to do our intergovernmental interviews, so to speak, conversations. We'll be doing that in June and July, and then in July we'll be starting, we haven't picked the locations yet, but the district meetings. So the city's gonna be broken up into 10 districts, neighborhood planning districts. We'll pick the locations, times for those, and figure out how we're gonna advertise, because it's awfully hard to get people, easier for the city as a whole, because you can just blast it out on social media, but if it's specific to a neighborhood, it's harder. We'll work with the associations and possibly do some lit drops and that kind of thing. But at this point, the advisory group, the comp plan advisory group will be meeting tomorrow. The big things that we'll be discussing are those neighborhood planning district boundaries, and they are pretty logical on how they're separated out. They'll be also talking about the potential for a corridor, node, or area, what we call like personalities. So a good example would be like the Velp Avenue plan is a Velp Avenue personality. Just changing terms. Personality sounds better than plans, I guess. But, right? So they'll be doing that, coming up with some suggestions, looking at some staff suggestions, and just going over some of the old material that was, from our vision meeting that we had. But some of the highlight things I just want to spit out at you super quick. If I can find it here. So far to date, so we had they've done over 30 stakeholder interviews. They've met with 27 department heads or council members. We do have 3 new council members, so I have to get them interviewed. Since then, we've done half a dozen communication pushes, which is sending it out to about 30 community partners. Some of you may be inundated with those, I apologize. But we just keep sending them out so they can send it out to their networks. We have 8 do-it-yourself kits, which are how to do a little stakeholder meeting yourself. 8 of those are out, 4 have been returned, so 4 are still out there. We have a request for one from some industrial users on the northeast side. So that will be taking place. So far, we have over 400 surveys completed. And on the map social, where you can put the stuff on the maps, there's over 100 comments. So far, we're doing really good with our outreach. We've got another month to do that. And actually, we'll have some that'll be going into August yet. But really, August, first or second week of August, the consultants are going to be coming back up here, meeting with the advisory group again, and they will have a draft vision in place and the start of some recommendations. So once we start getting past August into the winter is when the plans start to get written. Obviously, we're going to take public input all the way up to the very end, but at a certain point, we just have to start drafting the document. So I want to let you know where all that is. We're about halfway through right now.
So from our perspective, the only official actions that we take is, I think, approving it, right, at the end? There's no other interactions. Of course, we could go as a resident, but as this group.
We'll probably have a workshop first. There's no super timing crunch on this. Our plan is already updated. We'll probably have a workshop with the Plan Commission, maybe invite other commissions. So I've done this in the past where we like to bring it through Plan Commission, we like to bring it through Sustainability Commission, we like to bring it through Traffic Commission, because it impacts all of those commissions, but that is a lot of meetings and a lot of the same people seeing it over and over. So we may hold some type of a workshop, invite everybody, notice that everybody's going to be there, and just have the consultants do a quick presentation, pull more comments. But yeah, ultimately, the comp plan's gonna come for you to look at. What you'll basically be doing is repealing the existing, recommending, well, first you'll be recommending approval and then repeal at the same time.
Yeah.
And that'll go off to council. In my experience, that sometimes takes a lot longer to get through council. Politics get more involved and they start kind of getting nitpicky on individual things. You know, if a property owner says, well, I don't like that, you want to change that, even though it's generally a giant concept. So generally, that's where it kind of gets bottlenecked. But at that point, it's at the council, so it's already running forward. So I'm excited that we're still on task. We're only a little bit behind, but mainly it's to get more public outreach. We did have disappointment that we couldn't get into Juneteenth, which was one of our big goals. We couldn't, it was a whole comedy of errors trying to get into there. So that's part of mainly. So we missed that. But anyway, that was it. I just wanted to throw that out there because, you know, this is, every time you see a staff report and everything, it always says comp plan, comp plan, comp plan. And that's what's coming through.
The last one was, what, 20?
2000.
That was actually adopted.
2003. Written in 2000.
Way overdue.
Yeah, they're supposed to be, I mean, we update them every year, and you'll see small revisions come through. You know, like the housing revisions we brought through not too long ago, I believe in the past they've done some more large-scale stuff. Every time we do an area plan, so like the Develop Avenue plan, or university, or authenticity, which I always call authenticity.
I said that too. City.
That's how it's spelled, it's play words, right? But every time those things go through, they come through this body as well. They get adopted, when council adopts them, they get adopted as part of the comp plan. So like when John was referencing the university plan, it might not match the comp plan, it supersedes it.
Yeah.
Because it's a newer plan, more detailed. And so, you know, in this planning, like I said, we talked about nodes and personality areas where we do a little bit extra, probably not as much as those plans, but kind of give personalities to those areas. There'll probably be about 4 or 5 of those, and then there'll probably be another 3 or 4 that they're going to recommend the city do work on after the plan's adopted. But again, that's all speculation on my part. The advisory group has to comment on it, you guys have to, so. But I suspect that'll be coming out because in the comp plan, you know, you generally do those plans maybe 1 every year or 2, update them. And so as you go through a 5-year cycle, there's usually 2 or 3 that you're running at the same time, obviously depending on the budgets and all that kind of stuff, but long-winded, but there you go. No.
All right. All right, date of the next meeting is July 22nd, 2024.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Letso. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. We're adjourned.
Thanks for sticking out.
Recording stop. Got your little hammer.
I'm a-
I do. I do it for you.